Good morning to Ms. Sakun and all my fellow classmates. I am Yee Shun, and this is my partner Sterling. Our presentation today will be focused on base erosion and profit shifting, more specifically the addressing of harmful tax practices. In today's economy, globalization has had a major impact. As a result, opportunities to reduce tax burdens by performing BEPS have risen. BEPS refers to corporate tax planning strategies used by multinationals to shift profits from higher tax jurisdictions to lower tax jurisdictions, thus eroding the tax base of the higher tax jurisdictions. This results in other countries paying less taxes while developing countries suffer as they rely on higher corporate income tax. However, companies have an incentive to perform BEPS as it causes profits to disappear for tax purposes or to shift profits to locations where there is little or no real activity but the taxes are low, resulting in little or no overall corporate tax being paid. Naturally, companies would want to maximize their profits, and not performing BEPS will cause them to lose large amount of money to corporation tax. To address this, the BEPS project was set up to combat tax avoidance. The project began in 2013 with OECD and G20 countries in a context of financial crisis and tax affairs. The BEPS project looks to develop discussion and could be achieved by successful international cooperation. Action 5 addresses harmful tax practices with a renewed focus on transparency and substance requirements. This standard is subject to peer review in order to ensure timely and accurate implementation. All members of the inclusive framework must commit to implementing the Action 5 minimum standard and commit to participating in the peer review. So far, most jurisdictions have complied with this standard. The cost of non-compliance can be extremely steep. Recent research indicates that failure to comply is costly for organizations. In other words, it makes good business sense to ensure compliance with all relevant regulations. The compliance cost refers to all the expenses that a company incurs to follow the industry regulations. Compliance costs include salary of staff, time and money spent on reporting, and new systems required to meet retention. These costs typically increase as the regulation increases. For example, the US looks at the total of a company operations to ensure compliance with anti-bribery, anti-terrorism, and anti-money laundering legislation across all jurisdictions. The cost of compliance is fairly high. As a result of this, many companies are turning to large systems like big data analysis to lower the headcount they need to dedicate to compliance and to spot non-compliance. So even if compliance costs have increased, conduct costs will as well. This trend looks to continue as the number of environmental, tax, transportation, public health, and other regulations have increased. Many nations also adjust their regulations according to their needs. Coming back to BEPS, intellectual property is often used when conducting BEPS. Briefly, IP such as patent, copyright, and trademarks are protected by law, which enable people to earn recognition or financial benefits from what they invent or create. Before the BEPS project took effect, it was possible for companies to use IP as a base to rationalize the movement of money between jurisdictions through aggressive intra-group transfer pricing. Therefore, the identification, deployment, and value of IP and other intangible assets throughout the value chain is a priority of this project. Other measures against ring fencing and grandfathering have been taken to ensure compliance. Following the above order, a ring fence is a virtual barrier that splits a portion of an individual or company financial assets from the rest. This may be done to reserve money for a specific purpose, to reduce taxes, or to protect the assets from losses. Next, grandfathering refers to an exemption that allows entities to continue with activities or operations that were approved before implementation of new rules, regulations, or law. Generally, a grandfather clause only exempts entities engaged in specific activities before the new rules being put in place, while all other parties must follow the new rules. This effectively places two sets of rules or regulations on otherwise similar businesses or circumstances, which create unfair competitive advantages for grandfather parties. For example, in situations where changes in zoning law prohibit new retail establishments, the existing stores are typically granted grandfather clauses, allowing them to stay in business while following specified limitations. Finally, the digital economy has also been addressed. The global consensus remains unclear on whether and how to tax businesses in the digital economy, as they have no physical presence in a jurisdiction. New business models that create a mismatch between taxation and value creation for digital activities. Some countries have tried to clarify this. For example, Hungary tax on digital advertising and Italy levy on digital transactions have seen turnover taxes implemented in targeted sectors. Therefore, it is important that this issue is resolved or addressed before further exploitation is done. Now I will pass it to Sterling.
Thank you very much, Yee Shun. Now, to essentially recap what this is, we will go over why it is that Action 5 discourages the EPS. Let's look at the composition of Action 5 in this case. Firstly, it assesses preferential tax regimes, which essentially what it does is that it identifies features of the tax regimes and see if said features are able to facilitate the EPS. In doing so, this prevents disruptions to neighboring countries' tax policies, for example. Secondly, the transparency framework. As mentioned previously, there is a peer review process in place. In doing so, this ensures a very level playing field among most of the jurisdictions and ensures that there are no grey areas. As of 2019, the reporting is done on a country-by-country basis and is done annually. However, starting 2020, the reporting will be changed to on change basis as to minimize the admin burden of OECD. Next, and finally, is the activity requirements. Suppose that the jurisdiction in question is of no or only nominal tax, they will have to follow these set of activity requirements. So, having said all that, let's look at the after effects of this project. Essentially, what tax jurisdictions have done is that they try to comply with transfer pricing more, and also it puts more double tax agreements in place. As such, this provides a lot of economic benefit in the form of increased tax revenue, in which governments can then use to boost their infrastructure. And as for the reaction of these jurisdictions, it can be categorized into one of two categories. One of which is of caution, one of which is they take this with caution, and another is of resistance. With caution, by being cautious, they show this by making more centralized decisions when it comes to transfer pricing. As for a negative reaction, there has been resistance in the sense that an argument was put out that preferential tax regimes are necessary in order to facilitate business growth internationally. So overall, is this effective or not? I would argue yes, for the following reasons. Firstly, the OECD has not been idle throughout this time. They have done constant monitoring of the jurisdictions in place. In 2018 alone, they've included 4 new jurisdictions, and 4 of which have been amended to comply with Action 5. Secondly, there is new and reinforced regulations, and also when these things are introduced, most of the member countries are well coordinated in implementing and tackling this issue. The end result of this, ultimately, is that it creates a fairer and more effective international tax system as to prevent the EPS from occurring. Thank you very much. Any questions?
one question for you.
Please.
So may I know that is there any example of the company has attempting to practice harmful tax practices?
Yes, there is actually. Now, in 2007, there was a case where BEPS was attempted by Vodafone, the British telecom company, whereby they used their subsidy in India to purchase a local call center. This was done in an attempt to bypass any transfer pricing norms and not comply with arm's length principle. So essentially what happened was Vodafone argued that this transaction occurred between two domestic companies. As such, the HQ of Vodafone in the UK is not affected. As a result, this has dragged out for a little while up to 2015, in which Vodafone actually won the case. Situations like this more or less emphasize the need for Action 5 to be implemented, as it will prevent anything like this from happening again. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much.
So is the BPS Action 5 like voluntary for all countries to join, or?
Okay, Action 5 is one of the 4 minimum standards required by all member parties. So it is necessary. It's a compulsory action to follow for all the countries. Yes. Any questions? Any more?
Okay, you mentioned that it's compulsory. What if they don't comply? What happens?
There will be, from my understanding, there will be fines and also investigations will be conducted. Otherwise, if they don't provide any further resistance from that, actually what they can do is provide assistance to help comply or even amend Action 5 to meet their needs. So it's not exactly a cookie cutter mode in a way. It's something that can be more dynamic and adjust to each country's needs. Anything else? Thank you for your time, everyone.